Lily Thornton clutched her worn leather satchel tighter as her father's words echoed in her mind. "You've been nothing but a burden since your mother died." The sting of his declaration still burned through her as she trudged along the dusty road leading away from the only home she had ever known in Colorado Territory, 1878. The morning sun beat down relentlessly as Lily paused to catch her breath. At 20 years old, she had spent her life trying to please her father, Jonathan Thornton, a man whose bitterness had only grown with each passing year since her mother's death. The small family ranch had been struggling, and when drought claimed most of their cattle this season, her father had finally snapped. "Why feed another mouth when you bring nothing but misfortune?" he had shouted before tossing her few belongings onto the porch. "That Richardson boy wanted to marry you last year, but you were too proud. Now look at you unmarried, useless, and eating what little food we have left." Lily wiped a tear from her cheek, leaving a streak of dust across her face. She hadn't wanted to marry Tobias Richardson, a man 30 years her senior with wandering hands and 3 deceased wives. Her refusal had only reinforced her father's conviction that she was stubborn and worthless. The distant town of Silver Creek shimmered in the heat waves rising from the earth. Lily had heard they needed help at the boarding house there. Perhaps Mrs. Winters would hire her. She had met the older woman once at a county fair and remembered her kind eyes. As she walked, the sound of approaching hoofbeats made her tense. Lone women on the open road were vulnerable, and Lily knew it. She stepped to the side, keeping her eyes downcast as was expected of a proper lady, her hand slipping into her pocket where she kept a small knife, a gift from her mother, before she passed. "Miss, are you all right out here alone?" A deep voice called. Lily looked up to see a tall man atop a magnificent chestnut stallion. His face was partially obscured by a wide-brimmed hat, but she could see he was young, perhaps 25 or so, with a strong jaw dusted with stubble and eyes the color of a summer sky. "I'm fine, sir," she replied, straightening her spine despite her exhaustion. "Just making my way to Silver Creek." The man studied her for a moment, his gaze taking in her dusty dress and the small bag that contained everything she owned in the world. "That's a fair distance on foot." "Nearly 15 miles more." "I'm aware," Lily said, resuming her walk. She didn't need another man telling her what she could or couldn't do. To her surprise, the stranger dismounted and fell into step beside her, leading his horse by the reins. "Name's Hayes Blackwood," he said, tipping his hat. "I own the Double B Ranch just north of Silver Creek." Lily eyed him cautiously. "Lily Thornton." "Thornton, Jonathan Thornton's daughter?" Hayes asked, his brow furrowing. Her heart sank. Of course he knew her father. Everyone in these parts did. "Yes," she admitted reluctantly. "I tried to buy some cattle from him last spring. Stubborn man," Hayes remarked. "Wouldn't sell even though his stock was struggling and I offered fair prices." Lily bit her lip. Her father's pride had cost them dearly. That sounds like him. They walked in silence for a few minutes before Hayes spoke again. "Why are you walking to Silver Creek alone, Miss Thornton?" The question was direct, and something about Hayes Blackwood's steady gaze made Lily want to answer honestly. "My father decided I'm no longer welcome at his ranch. He called me a burden, said I consume resources without contributing anything worthwhile." Hayes stopped abruptly, his expression darkening. "He put you out, his own daughter?" Lily nodded, looking away to hide the shame burning in her cheeks. "That's not right," Hayes said firmly. "Family stands by family, especially in hard times." "Not all families, Mr. Blackwood," Lily replied softly. Hayes studied her for a long moment, then gestured to his horse. "Please ride Maverick, I'll walk alongside. It'll get you to town faster and you look like you could use the rest." Lily hesitated. Accepting help from a stranger, a male stranger, went against everything she'd been taught about propriety, but her feet ached terribly, and the thought of riding instead of walking the remaining distance was tempting. "I couldn't impose," she said weakly. "It's no imposition," Hayes insisted. "Just helping a neighbor in need." Before she could protest further, he had lifted her effortlessly onto the saddle. The horse whickered softly as Lily settled herself, smoothing her skirts as best she could while maintaining her modesty. Thank you, she said, genuinely moved by his kindness. As they continued toward Silver Creek, Hayes asked about her plans. Lily explained her hope of working at the boarding house. Mrs. Winters is a good woman, Hayes confirmed, but I heard she recently hired someone else. The town's been growing since the new silver vein was discovered. Lily's heart sank. Oh, she said quietly. Without a position at the boarding house, her options were severely limited. There's work at my ranch, Hayes offered after a thoughtful pause. My housekeeper, Mrs. Donnelly, has been saying she needs help with the cooking and cleaning. The men working the range need feeding, and she's not as young as she once was. Suspicion flared in Lily. Single women didn't go to work at ranches run by unmarried men, not unless they were looking to become a certain type of woman. I appreciate the offer, Mr. Blackwood, but I don't think that would be appropriate, Hayes chuckled. Mrs. Donnelly is a formidable chaperone, Miss Thornton. She practically raised me after my parents died, and she'd box my ears if I stepped out of line. Your reputation would be quite safe. I'll try the boarding house first, Lily decided, but I thank you for the alternative. By the time they reached Silver Creek, the sun was beginning to set. The small town bustled with activity as miners and cowboys finished their day's work. Lily felt conspicuous as curious eyes turned to observe her riding Hayes Blackwood's horse. Hayes led them directly to the boarding house, a two-story white building with green shutters. As Lily dismounted, the door opened and Mrs. Winters emerged, her gray hair pulled back in a severe bun. Hayes Blackwood, what brings you to town? She called, then noticed Lily. And who might this young lady be? This is Miss Lily Thornton, Hayes introduced. She's looking for work, and I remembered you sometimes need help here. Mrs. Winters' face fell. Oh dear, I'm afraid I just hired the Henderson girl 2 days ago. I don't have need for another helper right now. Lily's hope crumbled. I see, she said, trying to keep her voice steady. Are you aware of any other positions available in town? The older woman frowned, thinking. The saloon's always hiring girls, but she trailed off, glancing at Lily's respectable if dusty appearance. That won't be necessary, Hayes interrupted firmly. Miss Thornton, my offer stands. Mrs. Donnelly would be delighted to have help at the ranch. Mrs. Winters brightened. The Double B, that's a respectable place, dear. Mrs. Donnelly is known throughout the territory for her propriety. No one would think twice about you working there. Lily looked between them, weighing her increasingly limited options. The sun was setting, and she had nowhere to stay for the night. The few coins in her pocket wouldn't get her a room anywhere reputable. If you're certain Mrs. Donnelly needs the help, she finally said to Hayes. She's been badgering me about it for months, he confirmed. You'd be doing me a favor, honestly. And so Lily found herself once again atop Maverick, this time riding double with Hayes as they headed north out of town toward the Double B Ranch. She sat stiffly, conscious of his strong presence behind her, his arms reaching around to hold the reins. Relax, Miss Thornton, Hayes said, amusement coloring his voice. I promise I don't bite. This is highly improper, Lily muttered, though she knew she had little choice. Only if someone sees us, he replied lightly. And out here, it's just us, the horse, and the Wyoming sky. The Double B Ranch appeared on the horizon after about an hour's ride, a sprawling property with a large main house, several outbuildings, and corrals filled with cattle and horses. Even in the fading light, Lily could see it was prosperous and well-maintained. A plump woman with silver-streaked auburn hair hurried out of the house as they approached, wiping her hands on her apron. Hayes Blackwood, where have you been all day, and who is this? She demanded, eyeing Lily with undisguised curiosity. Mrs. Donnelly, this is Miss Lily Thornton, Hayes said as he helped Lily dismount. She's looking for work, and I remembered you saying you needed help around the house. Mrs. Donnelly's expression softened as she took in Lily's exhausted state. You poor dear, you look dead on your feet. Come inside and have some supper while we talk. The housekeeper's motherly concern nearly undid Lily's composure. After a day of rejection and uncertainty, this simple kindness threatened to break the dam holding back her emotions. The main house was warm and inviting, with polished wooden floors and comfortable furniture. The kitchen smelled of fresh bread and stew, making Lily's stomach growl audibly. She blushed in embarrassment. Sit, sit, Mrs. Donnelly insisted, ushering Lily to the table. When did you last eat, child? Breakfast, Lily admitted, though it wasn't much. As she ate the hearty stew, Mrs. Donnelly placed before her, Lily explained her situation, though she softened the harshness of her father's words and actions. Despite her efforts, Mrs. Donnelly's expression grew increasingly outraged. Your own father called you a burden, the housekeeper exclaimed. And put you out without so much as a horse to ride. What kind of man does such a thing? A man who's lost his way, Hayes said quietly from where he leaned against the doorframe. Grief and hardship can change a person. Lily glanced at him gratefully for his understanding, though she knew nothing excused her father's cruelty. Well, you have a place here for as long as you need it, Mrs. Donnelly declared. I've been telling Hayes for months I can't manage this big house and cook for all the ranch hands alone anymore. My joints aren't what they used to be. I can cook, clean, and I'm good with figures, Lily offered. My mother taught me to run a household before she passed. Perfect, Mrs. Donnelly beamed. We'll work out a fair wage in the morning. For now, let me show you to a room. You look ready to collapse. The room was small but neat, with a narrow bed, a dresser, and a washstand. A window overlooked the corrals, and Lily could see the stars shining brightly in the clear night sky. After washing up with the water Mrs. Donnelly provided, Lily changed into her nightgown, one of only two she owned, and slipped beneath the clean sheets. Despite her exhaustion, sleep eluded her as she replayed the day's events, how quickly life could change. This morning she had awakened in her childhood home. Tonight she was essentially homeless, dependent on the kindness of strangers. Yet strangely, she felt safer here than she had in years under her father's roof. The thought of Hayes Blackwood brought a flush to her cheeks. His kindness seemed genuine, but Lily had learned early that men's kindness often came with expectations. Still, something about his steady blue eyes made her want to trust him. Foolish girl, she whispered to herself in the darkness. Keep your wits about you, this is just work, nothing more. With that admonition firmly in mind, Lily finally drifted into an exhausted sleep. Morning came early at the Double B Ranch. Lily awoke to roosters crowing and the distant sounds of men preparing for the day's work. For a moment she was disoriented, then yesterday's events came flooding back. She dressed quickly in her second dress, a faded blue calico that had seen better days, and made her way to the kitchen. Mrs. Donnelly was already there, kneading bread dough with strong, capable hands. Good morning, dear. Did you sleep well? Better than I expected, Lily admitted, rolling up her sleeves. What can I help with? The men will be coming in for breakfast soon. There's bacon to fry and I've got eggs waiting to be scrambled. Coffee's brewing, but we'll need more. Lily fell into the familiar rhythm of cooking. Her mother had taught her well, and even her father had grudgingly acknowledged her skill in the kitchen. As she worked alongside Mrs. Donnelly, the older woman shared information about the ranch and its operations. Hayes inherited this place from his uncle about 5 years ago, she explained. It was half this size then, but that boy has a head for business. Bought up struggling neighboring properties, including Old Man Weber's place last winter after he passed. He seems young to manage such a large operation, Lily observed as she flipped bacon in the cast iron skillet. 27 and wise beyond his years, Mrs. Donnelly said proudly. His parents died of fever when he was 15. His uncle took him in, taught him ranching from the ground up. Hayes worked every job on this ranch before he owned it. The kitchen door swung open and Hayes entered, already dressed for the day in work clothes, his hat in his hands. Morning, ladies, he greeted them. Something smells wonderful. Lily kept her eyes on her task, suddenly self-conscious. In the light of day, she was even more aware of how handsome he was, tall and broad-shouldered, with those striking blue eyes and a smile that seemed to light his whole face. Miss Thornton is already proving her worth, Mrs. Donnelly said. Best bacon I've seen fried in ages, not burned on the edges like when I rush it. I'm glad to hear it, Hayes said, pouring himself coffee. I'm riding out to the north pasture today with some of the men. We've had reports of wolves bothering the calves. Soon the kitchen was filled with ranch hands, 12 men of varying ages who eyed Lily curiously but respectfully. Mrs. Donnelly had clearly established expectations for behavior in her domain. They ate heartily, complimenting the food and thanking both women before heading out for their day's work. When they were alone again, Mrs. Donnelly showed Lily around the house and explained her duties. Besides helping with meals, Lily would be responsible for cleaning the main rooms, doing laundry, and assisting with any other household tasks that arose. Hayes also mentioned you're good with figures, Mrs. Donnelly said. He sometimes needs help with the ranch accounts and correspondence. His handwriting is atrocious. I'd be happy to help with that as well, Lily agreed, pleased that her education might be useful. Her mother had insisted she learn more than just household management, hiring a retired schoolteacher to instruct her in mathematics, literature, and history, despite her father's protests about filling a girl's head with useless knowledge. The days fell into a comfortable pattern. Lily rose early, helped prepare breakfast for the ranch hands, then tackled her household duties. In the afternoons, she often assisted Hayes with paperwork in his study, a cozy room lined with bookshelves that had belonged to his uncle. Hayes proved to be a fair employer, neither demanding nor critical. He treated Lily with a respect she hadn't experienced from a man before, valuing her opinions and intelligence. When she suggested a more efficient system for tracking expenses, he implemented it immediately. When she recommended ordering supplies in larger quantities to save money, he listened attentively and agreed. 2 weeks after her arrival, Lily was sorting through correspondence in the study when Hayes entered, his expression troubled. "Is something wrong?" she asked, setting aside the letter she'd been reading. Hayes hesitated, then placed a newspaper on the desk in front of her. "There's an article here about your father." Lily's heart raced as she scanned the page. The article was brief but clear. Jonathan Thornton had sold his struggling ranch to a mining company for a fraction of its worth and left the territory, reportedly heading to California. "He sold it," she whispered, a complex mix of emotions washing over her. The ranch had been in her mother's family for generations. It was supposed to be Lily's inheritance someday. Now it was gone, and her father with it. "I'm sorry," Hayes said gently. Lily stared at the paper, her vision blurring with unshed tears. "He didn't even say goodbye." "Not that I expected him to after." She couldn't finish the sentence. Hayes pulled a chair closer and sat beside her. "Lily," he said softly, using her given name for the first time, "your father's actions reflect on him, not you. A man who abandons his daughter and sells his heritage for quick money isn't showing strength of character." "I know," she said, her voice barely audible, "but he's still my father, and now I truly have nothing and no one." "That's not true," Hayes countered. "You have a position here for as long as you want it. Mrs. Donnelly adores you. She told me yesterday you're the daughter she never had. And the men respect you for your hard work and kind nature." Lily looked up at him, searching his face for any sign of insincerity. She found none. "Thank you," she said simply. "Besides," Hayes continued with a slight smile, "you're worth more than all his land. Anyone with sense can see that." The compliment caught her off guard, bringing a flush to her cheeks. Before she could respond, Mrs. Donnelly's voice called from the kitchen that dinner was ready, breaking the moment. That night, Lily lay awake thinking about Hayes's words, worth more than all his land. No one had ever valued her so highly before. Her father had seen her as a burden, a mouth to feed. Even the few suitors who had shown interest in her over the years had been more concerned with the potential of inheriting the Thornton ranch than with Lily herself. But Hayes Blackwood seemed different. He treated her with respect not because of what she could bring him, but because of who she was. The realization was both comforting and terrifying. Comforting because it made her feel valued for the first time in years. Terrifying because she found herself caring what Hayes thought of her in a way that went beyond employer and employee. "Don't be a fool," she whispered to herself in the darkness. "He's being kind, nothing more." The following weeks brought increasingly warm weather as spring blossomed across the rangeland. Wildflowers dotted the prairie and new calves frolicked in the pastures. Lily found herself settling into life at the Double B, her initial wariness giving way to a sense of belonging she hadn't felt since her mother died. Mrs. Donnelly became the maternal figure Lily had missed for so long, offering advice, sharing stories, and teaching her new skills in the kitchen. The ranch hands treated her with respectful camaraderie, particularly after she nursed several of them through a bout of influenza that swept through the bunkhouse. And then there was Hayes. Their working relationship had evolved into something Lily hesitated to name, but treasured nonetheless. They often spent evenings in the study, Hayes reading aloud from one of his many books while Lily mended clothes or worked on accounts. Sometimes they simply talked, sharing thoughts and experiences in a way Lily had never done with anyone else. One warm afternoon in late May, Hayes found Lily in the garden behind the house, harvesting early lettuce and radishes. "There you are," he said, approaching with a leather-bound package in his hands. "I've been looking for you." Lily straightened, brushing soil from her apron. "Did you need something, Mr. Blackwood?" Hayes smiled at her continued formality. Despite their growing friendship, Lily maintained certain proprieties, especially when others might be within earshot. "I brought you something from town," he said, extending the package. Curious, Lily wiped her hands on her apron and accepted it. Inside was a beautiful leather-bound journal and a set of quality pens. "I noticed you writing on scraps of paper sometimes in the evenings," Hayes explained when she looked up in surprise. "Mrs. Donnelly mentioned you like to write stories and such. I thought you might like something proper to write in." Lily ran her fingers over the smooth leather cover, deeply touched by his thoughtfulness. "This is too fine a gift," she protested weakly. "Nonsense," Hayes replied. "Consider it a thank you for all your help with the ranch accounts. You've saved me hours of frustration." "Thank you," Lily said sincerely. "I'll treasure it." Hayes shifted slightly, seeming uncharacteristically nervous. "There's something else. The town's having a Founder's Day dance this Saturday. I thought that Mrs. Donnelly and I were planning to attend, and we hoped you might join us." Lily hesitated. She hadn't been to a social function since before her mother's death. Her father had deemed such events frivolous and wasteful. More importantly, she had nothing suitable to wear to a dance. Hayes must have read her thoughts. "Mrs. Donnelly mentioned you might need a new dress for the occasion. She's arranged for Mrs. Peterson, the seamstress, to come out tomorrow to fit you." "I couldn't possibly," Lily began, but Hayes cut her off gently. "Please consider it part of your wages," he said. "You've worked hard these past months and taken on far more responsibilities than we initially discussed. A new dress is the least I can do." Something in his expression, a mixture of hope and uncertainty, made it impossible for Lily to refuse. "Very well," she agreed. "I would be happy to accompany you and Mrs. Donnelly to the dance." Hayes's face lit up with a smile that made Lily's heart skip a beat. "Excellent, I'll let Mrs. Donnelly know. She'll be delighted." As he walked back toward the house, Lily clutched the journal to her chest, a warm feeling spreading through her that had nothing to do with the spring sunshine. Mrs. Peterson arrived the next day with fabric samples and pattern books. Lily selected a soft blue cotton that Mrs. Donnelly declared matches your eyes perfectly, dear. The seamstress took measurements and promised the dress would be ready by Saturday morning. When the day of the dance arrived, Lily found herself both excited and nervous. The new dress was more beautiful than she had dared hope, a sophisticated cut with delicate lace trim at the collar and cuffs. Mrs. Donnelly helped her arrange her hair in a more elaborate style than her usual practical bun, using tortoiseshell combs to secure the golden brown waves. "You look lovely, dear," Mrs. Donnelly said, stepping back to admire her work. "Hayes won't know what hit him." "Mrs. Donnelly," Lily protested, blushing furiously. "Mr. Blackwood is my employer. This is merely a social outing among friends." The housekeeper's knowing smile only deepened Lily's blush. "Of course, dear. Now let's not keep him waiting." Hayes was in the parlor, dressed in his Sunday best, a dark suit that emphasized his broad shoulders and lean waist. He turned as they entered, and the look on his face when he saw Lily made her breath catch. "Miss Thornton," he said softly, "you look beautiful." Thank you, she managed, her voice barely above a whisper. You look very handsome yourself. Mrs. Donnelly cleared her throat pointedly. If you two are done admiring each other, we should get going. The dance starts in an hour, and it's a fair drive into town. The town hall had been transformed for the Founders' Day celebration. Lanterns hung from the rafters, casting a warm glow over the polished wooden floor. Tables lined the walls, laden with food brought by the townspeople. A small band of local musicians played lively tunes in the corner. Lily felt eyes on her as they entered, curious glances from people wondering who she was and why she was with Hayes Blackwood. Mrs. Donnelly, seemingly aware of Lily's discomfort, immediately began introducing her to friends and acquaintances. This is Miss Lily Thornton, who's been helping me manage that big house at the Double B, she explained repeatedly. A godsend, she is, and educated too. Keeps all the ranch accounts straight as an arrow. People were welcoming, if curious. Several women invited Lily to join their sewing circle, and the minister's wife asked if she might help with Sunday school lessons sometimes. You've become quite popular, Hayes commented when they had a moment alone. I may have to fight to keep you at the Double B. I'm not going anywhere, Lily assured him, then blushed at how the words sounded. That is, I'm very content with my position. Hayes smiled, his eyes crinkling at the corners. I'm glad to hear it. He glanced toward the dance floor where couples were forming for a Virginia reel. Would you do me the honor, Miss Thornton? Dancing with Hayes was unlike anything Lily had experienced before. He moved with surprising grace for such a tall man, guiding her confidently through the steps. When his hand rested at her waist, she felt a flutter in her stomach that had nothing to do with nerves. As the evening progressed, Lily danced with several other men, the doctor, the banker, even the young blacksmith, but her eyes kept returning to Hayes. She noticed several young women vying for his attention, particularly Clara Bennett, the banker's daughter, who seemed determined to monopolize him. Miss Bennett certainly seems taken with Mr. Blackwood, Lily remarked to Mrs. Donnelly as they rested between dances. The housekeeper snorted inelegantly. That girl's been setting her cap for Hayes for 2 years. Her father wants the match would combine the bank's money with the Double B land. But Hayes isn't interested. Oh, Lily tried to sound merely curious rather than intensely interested. Mrs. Donnelly gave her a shrewd look. Hayes is waiting for the right woman, someone with sense and substance, not just a pretty face and a dowry. Before Lily could respond, Hayes appeared at her side. The band's playing a waltz, he said, extending his hand. May I have this dance, Miss Thornton? The waltz was more intimate than the group dances they'd shared earlier. Hayes held her closer, his hand warm at her waist, his eyes never leaving hers. Lily could feel her heart racing and wondered if he could feel it too. You've charmed everyone tonight, Hayes said as they moved across the floor. Mrs. Peterson asked if you might help with costumes for the Christmas pageant. Reverend Ellis thinks you'd make an excellent teacher if the school ever needs one. And Dr. Wilson was particularly impressed by your intelligence. People have been very kind, Lily replied, touched by the community's acceptance. It's not kindness, Lily, Hayes said softly. It's recognition of your worth. The way he said her name with such warmth made her pulse quicken. Thank you for bringing me tonight, she said. I haven't enjoyed myself this much in years. Neither have I, Hayes admitted. His hand tightened slightly at her waist. Lily, there's something I've been wanting to talk to you about. Before he could continue, the music ended and Clara Bennett appeared at his elbow. Hayes, you promised to introduce me to your foreman about buying that mare, she interrupted, slipping her hand possessively through his arm. Hayes looked torn, but good manners prevailed. Of course, he said, then turned to Lily. Excuse me for a moment. Certainly, Lily replied with a polite smile, trying to ignore the stab of disappointment. As the evening wound down, Lily found herself on the porch of the town hall, taking a moment of quiet after the noise and excitement inside. The spring night was mild, stars twinkling overhead in the vast Wyoming sky. There you are, Hayes's voice came from behind her. I've been looking for you. Lily turned to find him standing in the doorway, silhouetted against the light from inside. Just getting some air, she explained. It was becoming rather warm in there. Hayes joined her at the railing, looking out over the darkened Main Street. "Did you enjoy yourself tonight?" "Very much," Lily said honestly. "Everyone has been so welcoming." "This is a good community," Hayes agreed. "I've always appreciated how folks look out for each other here." They stood in comfortable silence for a moment before Hayes spoke again, his voice lower, more intimate. "What I was trying to say earlier before we were interrupted. Lily, these past months with you at the Double B have been the happiest I can remember." Lily's breath caught in her throat as she turned to look at him. His expression was earnest, his blue eyes intense even in the dim light. "I've come to care for you," he continued. "More than I should, perhaps, as your employer, but I can't help feeling there's something special growing between us. I've seen how you've blossomed at the ranch, how you've made it more of a home than it's ever been. And I've watched how you've won over everyone you meet with your kindness and intelligence." "Hayes," Lily whispered, her heart pounding. "I'm not asking for anything right now," he hastened to add. "I respect you too much to rush, but I wanted you to know how I feel and to ask. If you might someday consider me as more than just your employer." Lily struggled to find words adequate to express the emotions swirling within her. "I've come to care for you too," she finally managed. "Very much. But I have nothing to offer you, no family, no dowry, not even a good name after how my father behaved." Hayes reached out slowly, giving her time to pull away, and took her hand in his. "Lily Thornton, you offer more than you know. Your strength, your kindness, your intelligence, those are worth more to me than any land or dowry." Before she could respond, Mrs. Donnelly's voice called from inside, announcing it was time to leave. The moment broken, Hayes squeezed Lily's hand gently and released it. "We should continue this conversation another time," he said softly, "when we have more privacy." The ride back to the ranch was quiet, each lost in their own thoughts. Mrs. Donnelly dozed in the back of the wagon, occasionally snoring softly. Lily was acutely aware of Hayes beside her, his arm occasionally brushing hers as he handled the reins. At the ranch, Hayes helped both women down from the wagon. "I'll see to the horses," he said. "You ladies should get some rest." Mrs. Donnelly yawned widely. "Don't need to tell me twice. These old bones are tired from all that dancing." She patted Lily's arm. "You were the belle of the ball tonight, dear. Sleep well." As the housekeeper disappeared inside, Hayes and Lily found themselves alone in the yard, moonlight silvering the scene. "Thank you again for tonight," Lily said softly. "It was wonderful." Hayes stepped closer, his expression serious. "Lily, I meant what I said earlier. You've become very important to me." "And you to me," she admitted, gathering her courage. "When I first came here, I was broken, with nowhere to go. You gave me not just work, but respect and kindness when I needed it most." "You've given just as much in return," Hayes said. He reached out, his fingers gently brushing a loose strand of hair from her face. "You've brought life and warmth back to this place." The tenderness of the gesture made Lily's heart race. Slowly, giving her every opportunity to step away, Hayes leaned down. His lips met hers in a gentle, questioning kiss that sent warmth spreading through her entire body. When they parted, Lily was breathless, her lips tingling from the contact. "I should go in," she whispered, though it was the last thing she wanted to do. Hayes nodded, reluctantly stepping back. "Good night, Lily, sweet dreams." "Good night, Hayes," she replied, using his given name without the formality of Mr. Blackwood for the first time. His smile at her use of his name followed her inside, warming her heart as she prepared for bed. That night, her dreams were indeed sweet, filled with dancing and starlight and the memory of Hayes's kiss. The next morning, Lily awoke to the sound of raised voices coming from the front of the house. Concerned, she dressed quickly and hurried downstairs to find Hayes and Mrs. Donnelly in the parlor with a visitor, a haggard, dusty man who turned as she entered. Lily froze, shock washing over her. "Father," Jonathan Thornton looked terrible, gaunt, unshaven, his clothes dirty and worn, but his eyes were clear as they fixed on his daughter. "Lily," he said, his voice rough. "What are you doing here?" she asked, struggling to maintain her composure. "The newspaper said you left for California." "I did," he admitted. "Got as far as Nevada before I realized what a fool I'd been." He glanced at Hayes and Mrs. Donnelly. Might I speak with my daughter alone?" Hayes looked to Lily for her decision. When she nodded, he and Mrs. Donnelly reluctantly withdrew to the kitchen, though Hayes's expression made it clear he wouldn't be far if she needed him. Once they were alone, Jonathan Thornton seemed to deflate, sinking onto the sofa. "I've been a terrible father to you, Lily." The blunt admission took her by surprise. "Why are you here?" she asked again, remaining standing. "To apologize," he said simply, "and to see if there's any way you might forgive me someday." Lily studied the man before her, so different from the harsh, unyielding father she remembered. "What happened in Nevada?" her father sighed heavily. "I lost everything gambling. Every cent I got from selling the ranch, found myself sleeping in stables, taking odd jobs just to eat." He looked up at her, his eyes haunted. "Got sick with fever, thought I was dying, started thinking about your mother, about you, about what I'd done." "And now you've come back," Lily said, her voice carefully neutral. "I had to find you," he said. "Had to tell you I was wrong." "You were never a burden, Lily. You were the best of your mother and me, and I was too blind with grief to see it." His voice broke. "I said terrible things to you, unforgivable things." Lily felt tears threatening but held them back. "Yes, you did." "I don't expect you to forgive me," Jonathan continued. "I don't deserve it, but I needed you to know how sorry I am, how ashamed." He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small, worn book. "Your mother's Bible, it's all I have left to give you, found it when I was at my lowest." Reading it made me see what I'd become. Lily took the Bible with trembling hands. It had been her mother's most treasured possession, filled with notes in her delicate handwriting. She'd thought it lost forever. "Thank you for this," she said softly. Jonathan stood, swaying slightly with exhaustion. "I'll go now. I just needed to see you to tell you those things." "Where will you go?" Lily asked, surprised to find she still cared. "Don't know," he admitted. "Back to town, I suppose, see if I can find work somewhere." Before Lily could respond, the door opened and Hayes entered, his expression carefully controlled. "Mr. Thornton, I couldn't help overhearing. We could use another hand at the ranch. The bunkhouse has an empty bed and the work is hard but fair." Jonathan looked stunned. "You'd offer me work?" "After what I did to my own daughter," Hayes's gaze was steady. "Everyone deserves a second chance to prove themselves. Whether Lily chooses to forgive you is her decision. The job offer stands regardless." Jonathan looked to Lily, who was equally surprised by Hayes's offer. "I don't know what to say," her father admitted. "Say you'll take the job and work hard," Hayes suggested. "Say you'll respect that this is Lily's home now and her comfort comes first. Say you'll prove through actions, not just words, that you've changed." After a moment of consideration, Jonathan nodded. "I accept, Mr. Blackwood, and I promise to abide by your conditions." "Good," Hayes said. "The foreman will show you where to stow your gear. Breakfast is in an hour." After her father left to find the foreman, Lily turned to Hayes in bewilderment. "Why would you do that?" Hayes's expression softened. "Because he's your father, despite everything, and because I saw genuine remorse in his eyes." He stepped closer, taking her hands in his. "But mostly because I know you, Lily Thornton. You'd worry about him regardless of what he did, and this way you can see for yourself if he's truly changed." Tears filled Lily's eyes at his understanding. "Thank you," she whispered. Hayes squeezed her hands gently. "Your kindness is one of the things I love about you." The word love hung in the air between them, neither acknowledging it directly but both feeling its weight and significance. The following weeks brought significant changes to the Double B Ranch. Jonathan Thornton proved to be a diligent worker, though his health had been weakened by his ordeal. He kept his distance from Lily initially, respecting her need for space, but gradually they began to rebuild their relationship during Sunday dinners that Hayes insisted Jonathan join. Lily watched her father closely, looking for signs that his remorse was genuine. She saw how he helped the younger ranch hands, sharing his knowledge of cattle without the bitterness that had characterized his later years at their family ranch. She noticed his newfound humility, his willingness to take direction from men younger than himself. Most tellingly, she saw how he read her mother's Bible each night, something he had refused to do after her death. Meanwhile, Lily's relationship with Hayes continued to deepen. Their kisses became more frequent, more passionate, always private and respectful, but leaving no doubt about the direction of their feelings. They talked of the future in hypothetical terms that grew increasingly specific as the weeks passed. One warm evening in late June, Hayes invited Lily for a ride to show her a part of the ranch she hadn't yet seen. They rode side by side, Hayes on Maverick and Lily on a gentle mare named Daisy that he had given her for her personal use. "Where exactly are we going?" Lily asked as they crested a hill overlooking a picturesque valley. "Just over that next rise," Hayes replied with a mysterious smile. "It's my favorite spot on the whole ranch." They dismounted at the top of the hill, and Hayes led her to a large oak tree that provided shade over a spectacular view of the mountains in the distance. A stream wound through the valley below, its waters catching the golden light of the setting sun. "It's beautiful," Lily breathed, taking in the scenery. "I come here to think," Hayes explained, standing close beside her. "My uncle showed me this spot when I first came to live with him, said a man should have a place where he can see far and think clearly." Lily smiled up at him. "And do you?" "Think clearly here, never more so than now," Hayes said, his expression growing serious. He took both her hands in his. "Lily Thornton, I've fallen in love with you. I think I started falling the moment I saw you walking alone on that dusty road, too proud to ask for help but too sensible to refuse it when offered." Lily's heart soared at his words. "I love you too, Hayes," she admitted, her voice steady despite the emotion filling her chest. Hayes dropped to one knee, still holding her hands. "Then will you marry me, be my wife, my partner in everything? Help me make the Double be not just a successful ranch but a true home?" Tears of joy filled Lily's eyes. "Yes," she whispered. "Yes, I will marry you." Hayes's face lit with happiness as he rose and pulled her into his arms. His kiss was tender yet passionate, a promise of the life they would build together. When they finally broke apart, Hayes reached into his pocket and pulled out a small box. "This was my mother's," he said, opening it to reveal a delicate gold ring with a small but perfect diamond. "My uncle kept it for me, said I should give it to the woman I couldn't imagine living without." As he slipped the ring onto her finger, Lily was overcome with emotion. "It's perfect," she said softly. They stayed on the hilltop until twilight, planning their future together. Hayes wanted a fall wedding after the cattle drive but before winter set in. Lily agreed, suggesting October when the leaves would be turning gold and crimson. When they finally returned to the ranch, Mrs. Donnelly took one look at them and burst into tears of joy. "Finally," she exclaimed, hugging them both. "I was beginning to think I'd have to lock you two in the pantry together." The news spread quickly through the ranch. The hands offered congratulations, many admitting they'd been placing bets on when Hayes would propose. Only Jonathan Thornton seemed uncertain, holding back as others celebrated. Later that evening, Lily found her father sitting alone on the porch, staring at the stars. "May I join you?" she asked hesitantly. He nodded, making room on the bench. "Congratulations," he said after a moment. "Blackwood is a good man, better than I ever was." "He is a good man," Lily agreed, "but that doesn't mean you can't be one too." Jonathan looked at her, surprise evident in his expression. "You think I can change that much?" "I think you already have," Lily said honestly. "The father I knew a year ago would never have admitted he was wrong, never have asked forgiveness." They sat in silence for a moment before Jonathan spoke again, his voice rough with emotion. "Your mother would be proud of the woman you've become, strong, compassionate, forgiving." "I hope so," Lily said softly. "I know so," her father assured her. He hesitated, then added, "I don't deserve to ask this, but would you allow me to walk you down the aisle? Give you away to a man worthy of you?" Tears filled Lily's eyes at the unexpected request. Part of her wanted to refuse, to deny him this honor after how he had treated her. But another part, the part that remembered the father he had been before grief twisted him, couldn't deny the sincerity in his eyes. "I would like that," she finally said. The months leading up to the wedding were filled with preparations and unexpected joys. Mrs. Donnelly and the women from town helped Lily create a wedding dress, using fine fabric Hayes ordered from Denver. The ranch hands built a new larger cabin a short distance from the main house as a wedding gift. knowing the couple would want their own space while still being close enough to manage the ranch. Most surprising was the transformation in Jonathan Thornton. He worked tirelessly alongside the other men, regaining strength and purpose. When Hayes promoted him to assistant foreman, recognizing his experience and knowledge, Jonathan's gratitude and pride were evident to everyone. The wedding day dawned clear and crisp in early October, exactly as Lily had hoped. The ceremony would take place on the ranch, under an arch of autumn flowers erected near the oak tree where Hayes had proposed. In the main house, Mrs. Donnelly helped Lily dress, both women tearful as the housekeeper fastened the last buttons on the ivory gown. "You look like an angel," Mrs. Donnelly declared, arranging Lily's veil. "Hayes won't be able to speak when he sees you." A knock at the door revealed Jonathan, dressed in a new suit, his hair trimmed and face cleanly shaven. He stopped in the doorway, momentarily overcome at the sight of his daughter as a bride. "You look just like your mother on our wedding day," he said softly. Lily smiled through her tears. "That's the nicest thing you could have said." The ceremony was simple but beautiful. Friends and neighbors from town joined the ranch hands and their families to witness the union. Reverend Ellis officiated, his words speaking of love, forgiveness, and new beginnings that seemed particularly fitting given the journey Lily and Hayes had taken to reach this day. When Jonathan placed Lily's hand in Hayes's, there was a moment of understanding between the two men and acknowledgement that while one man had failed to value Lily properly, the other would spend his life ensuring she never doubted her worth again. Hayes's vows, spoken in a clear, steady voice that carried across the assembled guests, brought tears to many eyes. "Lily Thornton, when I found you on that dusty road, I had no idea I was finding the other half of my heart. You came here with nothing but your courage and dignity, asking only for honest work. But you gave us all so much more: your kindness, your wisdom, your strength. You transformed a house into a home and a solitary man into one who can't imagine life without you. I promise to cherish you, respect you, and love you all the days of my life." Lily's voice trembled slightly as she responded, "Hayes Blackwood, you saw value in me when I couldn't see it in myself. You offered kindness without expectation, respect without condition, and love without reservation. You created a place where healing was possible not just for me, but for all who come within your circle. I promise to stand beside you in all things, to share your joys and sorrows, and to love you with all my heart for as long as we both shall live." The celebration afterward lasted well into the evening, with food, music, and dancing. As sunset painted the sky in shades of pink and gold, Hayes led Lily away from the festivities toward their new cabin. "Happy, Mrs. Blackwood?" he asked, his arm around her waist. "More than I ever thought possible," Lily answered truthfully, leaning into his embrace. Their new home was simple but beautiful, filled with furniture crafted by the ranch hands and linens sewn by the women of Silver Creek. A fire burned welcomingly in the hearth, and on the table sat Lily's journal, the one Hayes had given her, with a new pen beside it. "For recording the next chapter of our story," Hayes explained when he saw her notice it. Lily turned in his arms, reaching up to touch his face. "I love you, Hayes Blackwood." "And I love you, Lily Blackwood," he replied, lowering his lips to hers in a kiss that sealed their promises and began their new life together. 5 years later, Lily sat on the porch of their expanded home, watching Hayes teach their 4-year-old son, Michael, to ride his first pony. Beside her, 2-year-old Emma played with wooden blocks, occasionally looking up to check that her mother was still nearby. The Double B Ranch had prospered beyond anyone's expectations. Hayes's business acumen, combined with Lily's careful accounting, had allowed them to expand their holdings and implement new breeding techniques that produced hardier cattle. They now employed over 20 men year-round, with more during busy seasons. Jonathan Thornton had proven his worth many times over, eventually becoming the ranch's head foreman. The relationship between father and daughter had healed gradually, built on small moments of understanding and forgiveness. When Michael was born, Jonathan had wept as he held his grandson, promising to be a better grandfather than he had been a father. Mrs. Donnelly still ruled the main house kitchen, though she now had two young women helping her. She doted on the children and continued to treat Lily as the daughter she'd never had. "Mama, look," Michael called as his pony trotted in a perfect circle, Hayes walking alongside with a lead rope. "Well done, sweetheart," Lily called back, smiling at her son's obvious pride. Hayes glanced up, catching her eye with a smile that still made her heart race after 5 years of marriage. In that look was all the love and partnership they had built together through the harsh winters and dry summers, through childbirth and illnesses, through the everyday challenges of ranch life. Later that evening, after the children were asleep, Hayes and Lily sat together on their porch swing, watching the stars emerge in the vast Wyoming sky. His arm around her shoulders, her head resting against him, they enjoyed a rare moment of quiet togetherness. "Do you ever think about that day we met?" Hayes asked, his fingers gently stroking her arm. "Often," Lily admitted. "How different my life would have been if you hadn't stopped to help a dusty, defiant woman on the road," Hayes chuckled. "You weren't defiant, determined, yes. Dignified, absolutely. I remember thinking you were the proudest, most beautiful woman I'd ever seen, despite looking like you'd walked halfway across the territory." "Which I nearly had," Lily reminded him with a smile. "Your father did us a favor in a strange way," Hayes mused. "If he hadn't called you a burden and sent you away, we might never have met." Lily considered this. "Perhaps, or perhaps we would have met when you finally convinced him to sell you those cattle. And you would have been the rancher's beautiful daughter, too good for a neighboring cattleman," Hayes teased. "Never," Lily said firmly, turning to face him. "I would have seen your worth immediately," Hayes kissed her softly, "as I saw yours." "You're still worth more than all the land in Wyoming to me, Lily Blackwood." "And you're worth more than all the gold in California to me," she replied, returning his kiss with one of her own. As they sat together under the star-filled sky, Lily reflected on the journey that had brought her here from a rejected daughter called a burden to a beloved wife, mother, and respected member of the community. The path had not been easy, but every step had led her to where she was meant to be. In the arms of a man who had seen her true worth from the very beginning, building a life rich with love, purpose, and belonging. In the distance, a coyote called to its mate, the sound echoing across the rangeland that was their home. Hayes tightened his arm around Lily, and she snuggled closer, content in the knowledge that whatever challenges tomorrow might bring, they would face them together, equal partners in the life they had created, worth more to each other than all the riches in the world.